Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Inturnet Dorcs Sports Weekly Picks. We're going to be discussing some of our plays spanning from the 20th to the 23rd of May. But before we begin, let's look at last week's results and a little mistake we made along the way. First off, we really should have included the odds or the betting line that we got for each of our picks, as now it's a little too late and we can't do the proper unit calculations. Bear with us, guys. That was the inaugural episode. We're going to learn from that one and improve on it this week round. So, first off, we had the Arsenal money line, and they were thrashed 3-0 by Brighton, which saw their season completely fall apart. See our video on Arsenal's complete capitulation for more information. Second off, we had the Brentford money line, and that was a comfortable 2-0 win. We had the Liverpool money line, once again, a very comfortable 3-0 win. Now, our Atletico Madrid and Red Bull Leipzig money line parlay was oh so close. Leipzig managed to capture a last-gasp 2-1 victory. However, Atletico Madrid somehow floundered against 20th place Elche and lost 1-0. However, it's worth noting that Elche won only via what should have been a disallowed goal, and Atletico should have gotten a penalty. But that's La Liga refereeing, and that could be a whole video in and of itself. Next up, we had our Sporting Braga, Porto, and Marseille moneyline parlay, which hit nice and clean. However, we did sweat with Porto, and they had to get that 90th minute goal to get us across the line. And finally, on the soccer end, we had our Fibonacci and Feyenoord moneyline parlay, which hit very sweetly, and we didn't have to stress about either one of those guys. Finally, for our hockey plays, the Edmonton Oilers came up short in a game that we felt pretty confident on. So overall last week, out of 7 picks, we were 4-3. We'll look to improve on those and provide some proper odds so that we can ensure that we're in the money. Now, before we begin with our soccer plays, we would like to preface this by saying we are still very big MMA fans, and we would love to provide you with some good fight lines for the UFC card this weekend. But both the card and the odds themselves are incredibly lackluster, and we cannot, in good faith, give you any line to bet on that we would touch. Now, on to the soccer. You'll notice a bit of a trend this week. For all of our soccer plays, they are parlayed up. This may seem a little scary, but hopefully we can convince you to jump on one or two of them. Starting off, we have FC Porto and PSV Eindhoven in a 1-unit -141 parlay. Both of these teams are playing away from home, and there's a little more context needed. See, PSV is playing one of the lowest rated sides in the league, and Porto, while playing tougher competition, are chasing Benfica for the title. And we believe both teams not only have good away records, but are determined to get the win here. Second off, we have Ajax and Sparta Rotterdam parlay. Following up on our Dutch Eredivisie League theme, we have a 1-unit bet on these two teams at -141 again. Contrary to the previous bet, both Ajax and Sparta Rotterdam are at home, and we think that plays into a very big advantage, as Ajax playing Utrecht at home is a difficult game, but Ajax's home record is stellar, and Utrecht's away record, not so much. The same can be said about Sparta Rotterdam. While they're a weaker squad than Ajax, they're at home playing far weaker opponents than Utrecht, and we have good faith in them as well. Third up, we have Newcastle and Reims in a parlay for 1 unit at -109. Now, we think that this is an especially good line. We find it very difficult to conceive of a world where Leicester City, away from home, get the win against Newcastle, and I think many would agree with us there. Now, Reims as well is at home with a very solid record against one of the worst teams in the division. Fifth up, we have Atalanta and Fulham. In this case, we actually have Atalanta and Fulham to win or tie in a parlay at plus money at 114. Now, first up, Atalanta is literally playing Sampdoria, who is in 20th place in Serie A. This should be a relatively easy win for them. And they're at home. Second off, Fulham are playing Crystal Palace. Now, Fulham have been incredibly impressive this season, like most, especially at home. And while Crystal Palace is a tough day out, Hence, we're saying win or tie, because we believe that a 1-1 or 0-0 result is incredibly possible. Overall, Crystal Palace seems to really struggle to get the one-up over any sides when they're not playing at home. So we have good faith that Fulham will at the very least be able to tie this up. And for plus money, we think that this is pretty good value. Finally, we have a classic Premier League parlay, Brighton and Manchester City. Now, Brighton once again playing relatively low-level competition, and Manchester City are playing the newly considered low-level competition in Chelsea. Man City stands to win the title with a win against Chelsea while they're playing at home. If you think that Pep Guardiola is going to miss out on a chance to close out the season early, I think you'd be quite mistaken. And while minus 189 seems a little steep, I think that the results will speak for themselves. Now, our one hockey play for you. Looking to redeem ourselves from last week in this department, we're backing the Carolina Hurricanes. Carolina has had an excellent playoffs, and that's not undermining what Florida has done at all. Florida has had a fantastic run, coming back from 3-1 down to eliminate the Boston Bruins on their home ice in a shocker of a Game 7. Then, completely manhandled the Toronto Maple Leafs, with some credit going towards puck luck and some lenient officiating for the Panthers squad. Again, anything can happen in the playoffs. And some teams just come to play and fire on all cylinders at the right time. Take the 2020 Montreal Canadiens as a perfect example. Florida took Game 1 into overtime in the 4th overtime period, that being the 6th longest in NHL history. Although that had to be deflating for the Hurricanes, they never seemed to bat an eye at this postseason. Having 4 of their top 5 players out, nothing seems to be stopping Carolina from making this a close series and potentially moving them to a Stanley Cup final. We think that this is an easy pick. Teams seem to always rebound in Game 2 right after a Game 1 loss on home ice, especially a team as good as Carolina. They will win the game Saturday, and they will go to Sunrise, Florida with the series tied. We take the Hurricanes to win Game 2 at minus 145. So that'll conclude our picks for this week. Now bear in mind, we will include more baseball, and we will include more MMA going forward. There was just nothing particularly enticing that we felt like passing along. But to quickly review, we've got 5 soccer bets and 1 hockey bet for you. Now, we'll provide the results next time with actual unit values, and stay tuned for more.